Well, hey, it's GuruNischan, and I just thought I would make you a video blog today instead of writing to you. I have been writing my book and writing away, and also really bitch slapped by the universe to heed the call of stillness and listen deeply. And so it's brought me into a personal abyss over the last few weeks. And I think the last time that I wrote to you, I was explaining some really deep abdomen pain, sharp pain that happened at the beginning of October that really sent me into what felt like an energetic exorcism. And if you've been following me for a while, you know that I teach on trauma healing, and I teach on listening to the call of our soul and learning to embody and get into our body and heal the unprocessed pains, what we call dirty pain, and process it so that it can become clean pain, so that we can take the pains of our life and learn how to alchemize it into the pleasure, into the things that fuel and juice us up in the creation and unfoldment of our own living embodiment. So this journey for me began back in 2012 at the crux of losing a business, or losing a business that I had spent a decade building. And in the meantime, I had lost all the financials and the residual income, and basically the hopes and dreams that I really started off with in my early 20s as an entrepreneur, to create a residual income so that I could travel the world and go back to Africa. I lived in East Africa and really have always had the dream to do philanthropic work and help the people that I met when I lived there, my ex-husband's family, and just in general, a lot of ambitions were tied into that original dream. And so when that blew up, the nature of the circumstances of how that business got dismantled and taken away, it was too big of an incident for me not to notice that there was a bigger message. And so this is what I like to call a soul message in my work. If you've been working with me or following my work, the soul is always communicating to us. And yet we don't learn the language of the soul, so we don't always heed the call. And one of the calls is when things absolutely fucking blow up in your life. Financial disaster, divorce, just things that are just like too big to handle in this 3D reality. There's often a much bigger spiritual or soul message that's available to us, where our spirit is being called to look in a new direction. And when I got that message, I got a clear vision on my life. Literally, it was like a movie reel picture. This happened in January 2012. And I could see myself in my future self. It was like my higher self was showing me a movie reel of myself. And it was so profound. And then the next moment, it was literally a voice that said, and you're nowhere near the person you have to become to bring this to life, so get to work. And so at that point, even though I was in financial disaster, I wasn't afraid of being in financial disaster. I realized that I had to turn inward instead of go outward and find the next job and make the next amount of money. And I had a lot of skill sets that I could have made any amount of money with, but I knew my work was inside of me. And I didn't know what that meant exactly. And I didn't know that it would take me on a deep dive, inner abyss journey that would be the next 8 years of my life. I didn't know that I would come into contact with a tremendous amount of unconscious trauma that was living in my body. Because at that time, if you would have asked me, I would have told you I had a really good childhood and I hadn't experienced any traumatic events. And, I think that's most of us. I think most people, we categorize trauma as like these big incidences that happen, or somebody who goes to war and has PTSD, or somebody who was raped, or somebody who grew up, with drug abandoned parents. But, the truth is we all hold traumatic experiences. Even if your mind doesn't register it as traumatic, the body can encapsulate it and hold that memory as traumatic. And I didn't know that back then. And so I just started paying attention to what was happening that was taking me deeper into myself. And one of the things that I noticed back in 2000, so this happened in 2012. It took about 2013, about a year for me to kind of start coming out of my shell a little bit. And when I started coming into contact points with what I call in my work, what your inner awareness will reveal to you is where your attention has to go. And so what happened for me was I launched the first version of my online brand in like August 2013. And it was called Sassy, Sexy, Spiritual. Okay. And the why I'm communicating this to you or sharing this with you today as part of this blog is because at that time, having a brand called Sassy, Sexy, Spiritual was extremely edgy for me. It was full of charge. To say sexy and spiritual in the same sentence at that time in 2013 had a lot of charge. And what do I mean by charge? It contracted me. It was like, you know, and I was excited about it, and it was hot, but it was tied with a lot of mixed emotions, and I didn't know what that was inside of me. And so by launching that first version of that brand, it took me into this inward journey that over the course of the next number of years brought me deeper and deeper into myself. And what I now know is the spiral into myself of self-embodiment. I was going into my pelvic bowl to heal sexual trauma that I didn't even know was embedded in my unconscious ways of relating, in my thinking processes, in my physiological patterns. I didn't know that anxiety and indigestion and the tightness of my physiology and my inability to feel my anger or my emotions, I didn't know the connection because I didn't have any traumatic memories. My body remembered things and my mind had no recollection. And so I was in this noticing, and that those next number of years brought me into shadow work, and it brought me into really embracing the darkness and going into parts of my own depths that I didn't even know existed. And the last 8 years has been this powerful journey of darkness to balance my own inner circuitry. And this is what has led me into this work of teaching you about the human nervous system, because I've extracted my lived experience of growing up in a spiritual community that actually was a cult that had a tremendous amount of predatory, abusive training associated to it. But my conscious mind never understood that. My body has always remembered those memories. And over the last number of years, I've collected nervous system technologies, as I call them, that have supported me to unwind the very deep and complex layers of trauma that had formulated my system, my physiology, my thinking patterns, my way of viewing the world, my way of relating, my inability to connect emotionally and be vulnerable, the guards that I held up around my heart. So many expressions and manifestations of complex trauma that I never categorized as that because I didn't even know what complex trauma was. And I had been so well trained within a yoga spiritual community to bypass my own emotional experience, to bypass my own felt sense, to bypass my whole body. And what I didn't realize that I came to realize in about 2017, 18, through a lot of conscious sexual embodiment work to get into my body, to learn to feel my emotions and to not bypass my own human experience. And this isn't easy because a lot of us grow up in experiences. I'm sure you weren't raised in a cult like I was, but you were definitely raised within some sort of a family, societal, and cultural context that imprinted certain ideas and belief systems that have become patterns over time. And a lot of those patterns become unconscious patterns because they become the patterns of our own survival. So anyways, I'm sharing all that to share with you that the last number of years has been this deep dive into my own self-reclamation, because I wanted to feel my own sex and my own desire. And as I went into my body, I realized I couldn't feel myself. All I could feel was the indoctrination that I had been told. And a lot of that was filled with spiritual bypassing and monogamy training and sex shaming and really kind of codependent garbage around relationships and relating. I realized how vacated I was inside. And so the last number of years has been the process of me learning how to come back into my body, to love this vessel enough to seduce my soul back into my body. And the work that I'm here to teach is that fullness, that manifestation of what it means to re-show back up into your body after having profound disassociation mechanisms and techniques. So I share all this with you to share that, it was a number of weeks ago that I intended to launch my new course, Currency of Power, Foundations of Erotic Energy. And this course is very special to me because it is the living embodiment of my healing journey over the last 5 years. And if you haven't noticed over the last, say, 6 months, there's been a huge explosion within my own childhood community that has brought me to the full anchored conclusion of the cult programming, the indoctrination that was so finely woven in my fascia all the way down through my digestive system, into my pelvic bowl, into the fibers and tissues that formed my very existence since birth. Because that is how our nervous system works. Trauma is stored in our body as protective systems that allow us to survive our lived experience. And while your lived experience isn't mine, what I know is that we all need the tools and the support system in community and in each other, and mostly within ourselves, that we have what it takes to resource within ourselves to heal and reclaim self within the multitude of onslaughts of abuse and pain and hardships that we've each had to individually go through, unique to our lived experience and our personal family dynamics. So this course that's coming out is Currency of Power, Foundations of Erotic Energy. And what's so exciting is to be on a sexual reclamation journey and to come to a place where I'm so in my experience that now I get to share what that means to be here and to fully have all of me. And so yeah, I'm excited to share it. So even though I meant to do this in the last couple of weeks, I'm just going to go ahead and do it in the next week and a half. We're going to launch and offer out this course. I'm very excited to be in a whole new domain, sense of self within myself. And it just feels like a very apropos time to share. So what I wanted to do was make this video with you today and share that back in the spring of 2020, when all of the unraveling of my community and COVID and all of kind of like everything started to blow up in the world, for me it was like this unhooking of my conscious and a liberation. And it's been quite a journey of getting into the physical realm of owning the fact that I have complex trauma, complex PTSD, and the reality of what that looks like in my physiological system. And that has unraveled in the last number of months and specifically weeks as I start to write my book and share on this journey. So it's just been some really, really powerful unleashing. And I made this trauma series going back when all of this began, but I never completed it. And so I'm going to share that video with you today. There's a video series called Healing Stress and Trauma, and I want to invite you into watching it. And by clicking on the video, you'll be automatically opted into the series. And by video 3, I'm going to share with you a little bit about what the last couple of weeks has looked like with me when I got bitch slapped by the universe and made to lay on my bed, and some real final, what felt like final unrooting of wiring that was hooked so deeply in my pelvic bowl, which has been the area that I've been working on, and the spine and my spinal cord, and opening my heart over the last number of years. And this is the potency of what healing work can do. Is it's spherical, and we unwind it in phases. And so video 3 is all like, what does our leg look like? What does our body look like? What do we begin to look like as we have more of us and less of the pain patterns, less and less of the trauma patterns, less and less of the codependency patterns, yeah? So anyway, I just wanted to share all this with you. I hope you enjoyed this video. I want to invite you to do this week's breath practice, of course, and be sure to spend some time with yourself. If you are interested in hearing more and being a part of my Currency of Power Erotic, Foundations of Erotic Energy that's coming up, it's happening within the next 10 days or so, couple weeks. So be sure to get on the opt-in list so you hear all of the details. I'm going to be offering some free classes this week. And check out the trauma series. And it's really important. Right now, we're all dealing with a tremendous amount of stress and trauma, and the external world and the chaos externally. What that does is it stirs up any unprocessed debris that we have internally. And so the more we can really learn how to manage this energy system, the less and less the external chaos will short circuit your system, and then you won't be reacting to that. And it's a very hard thing to do right now because there's so much chaos externally. But I promise you, this currency of power work, you are the currency of power, and your erotic energy is the energy that fuels your entire system. And when you learn to tap into that energy and allow it to flow freely, uninhibited by our conditioning and our indoctrination and other people's baggage that's stored in us, we become free and liberated to show up fully as who we're here to be. And it's a hard and painful and well worth it experience. And I'm happy that you're here to be a part of witnessing my journey, and I'm happy to be a part of witnessing yours. So check out the trauma series. You'll get the second video in the next couple of days, and look forward to hearing your feedback on that. Please leave a comment. And if you're just tuning in, be sure to subscribe to my work at GuruNischan.com, and stay tuned in. We are going to be launching Foundations of Erotic Energy. Don't miss out. 2020, and set yourself up for the potent, powerful energy that is flying through, leading us into the end and transition into the new year. Looking forward to connecting soon.